Good afternoon, everybody. So, as Vanessa just said, I'm going to present NitroCock, which is the work that few colleagues of mine and myself at Nomadic Labs have been doing in the past year. But first, I should say a few words about the Tezos project and the applicability of formal methods for Tezos, because this is the smart contract platform on which all this work is applied. So first I should say that the Tezos project has always recognized the role of formal methods as very crucial to the project. So since the very infancy of the project in the white paper. And in the last year, we have seen a number of projects launched in this area to apply techniques from the field of formal methods like static analysis, refinement types, and many functional verification efforts in a variety of tools. And these target both the OCaml implementation, the reference implementation of the Tezos node, and the smart contract layer. And so in this talk, I'm going to focus on the smart contract layer and on doing formal functional verification using the Cockproof assistant. So since we are talking about smart contracts, about Tezos smart contracts, I need to say a few words about Michelson, which is a smart contract language for the Tezos platform. It's a stack-based Turing complete language, a bit similar in this respect to EVM. So it's a low-level computation paradigm, but it also offers rich, high-level data structures such as associative maps, sets, lists, stuff like that. And since formal methods have already been considered a central part in the Tezos project, it has really been designed with software verification in mind. So in particular, it's a statically typed language. So many errors are ruled out at static time. And it's well specified. So the syntax, typing rule, and semantics are all specified in a format that's ready for academic consumption. And in Michelson, failure is always an explicit operation. So in particular, we don't have integer overflows. We use arbitrary precision numbers everywhere. And even division doesn't fail at runtime. So division in Michelson returns an option, and the programmer has to be explicit about what to do in the case where the divisor is 0. And on the implementation side, so I already mentioned that the Tezos node was written in OCaml, and there is a feature in OCaml called GADTs for generalized algebraic data types that's heavily used for Michelson, and this provides subject reduction for free in the reference OCaml interpreter. So this is very convenient. To give you an idea of the language, let's see a small example. So as you can see, Michelson script is composed of 3 fields called storage, parameter, and code. I could point this, storage, parameter, and code. So storage and parameter are types. Storage type is the type of the data that's going to be stored for the at the smart contract address. And the parameter is the type of the input that it's going to receive at each call. And so this example is a vote contract. So the code can be split in 3 parts. So this first part is a paywall. It checks that at least 5 TES have been sent to the contract. So the TES is the name of the Tezos token. Then there is a bit of pair and stack manipulation. I won't detail this part. And then the storage is updated to take the new vote into account. So in the first part, we use a built-in instruction called amount to push at the top of the stack the value of the amount sent to the contract in the current call. And we want to compare it to the constant 5 TES. And so to do that, amounts in Michelson are always represented as a millionth of a TES, which is the smallest amount unit in Tezos. Then we have compare and GT to compare these two values. And here we have an example of explicit failures, as I just said in the previous slide. If we want to fail in Michelson, we have to do this explicitly using this fail instruction. In the third part of this contract, of this script, we check that the parameter string is already present in the map. Otherwise, we do fail. And if it's present, we get the associated number of votes. We increment it. We update the map with this new value, and we store it back. So since this contract doesn't produce any operation, we push an empty list of operation, a new list of operation at the end. Okay, so I hope this gives you a good idea of what the Michelson language is. Let's now move to the formalization of the Michelson language in Coq, which is the real topic of this talk. So the project is called MichoCoq. It's a deep embedding of the Michelson language in Coq, and it covers essentially all aspects of the language. So from lexing to execution. And thanks to this, we can, thanks to the extraction mechanism of Coq, we can actually run MichoCoq, the MichoCoq evaluator on Michelson files directly. And since we are doing this in Coq also, we can use this deep embedding of the language, in particular the semantics of the language, to build a verification framework. And we do that using a very classic weakest precondition approach. All the code that I'm going to present is totally free software, so MichoCoq is available at the following link. Okay, so let's now dive into the formalization of the language. First thing we need to formalize is the type system. So there is an important fragment of the syntax of types in Michelson, which are called the comparable types. These are important because maps can only be indexed by comparable types, and sets can only contain comparable types as elements. So as you can see, we have a bunch of atomic types in this. So numbers, both natural and integer numbers. String, byte sequences, booleans. So most of this is not well, it's quite expected in a programming language. And then a few domain-specific types. So mutes, as we've already seen, represent amounts. Address represents address of accounts, in particular other contracts. And cache and timestamp are pretty obvious. Then we have a few compound types, like options, pairs, sometimes, which are called OR, and first class function, which are called lambdas. A few non-comparable domain-specific types, like keys, signatures, contracts, and the high-level data structure that I said before, so map, sets, and lists. Okay, so these types classify data, and to classify stacks, we need to compose them into stack types. A stack type is simply a Coq list of types. And then, once we have defined the syntax of types, as I've just showed you, we need to provide their semantics, so their meaning. To do this, we have two functions, one for types and one for stack types. And they are there is no surprise in the definition of this function, so I won't go into all cases. Basically, NAT goes to the coq type representing natural numbers, which is called n equals to z, etc. And lists are interpreted as coq lists. And for stacks, we simply represent the empty stack type by the unit type in coq. And if we have a stack that starts with A, type A, and followed by a stack type B, we represent it as a pair of a data of type A followed by a stack of type B. And next, let's go back to syntax, but this time for the instructions of the language. So we represent at the same time the syntax of the language and the typing rules. So there are many cases. Sorry, if I remember correctly, there are a bit more than 80 cases in the syntax of Michelson. So here are just a few ones in the long list. I won't present even all these, but just the most important ones. So fail with is explicit failure, and it uses the top element as an error message. Sec corresponds to the semicolon that we've seen in the example. So it's a sequential composition of two instructions. If is for branching, so it takes two pieces of code of the same type and dispatch on the Boolean at the top of the stack. Then we have a general loop that executes its body as long as the Boolean it produces is true. And well, I won't detail the other ones. Okay, so from this, so now we have the syntax and typing rules at the same time of the instructions, thanks to coq dependent types. It's quite pleasant to write. As you can see, it's an inductive type indexed by two stack types, and that's all. And then from this, we want to define the semantics of the language. So there are many choices there. Since we are also interested in actually running the semantics, we went for an evaluator. So this takes the form of a recursive function called eval that takes an instruction as an argument from a stack type A to a stack type B, and an input of the appropriate stack, so of type stack A. And we would like it to return a stack of type B, and for this we dispatch on both the instruction and the input. So for the sequence, we can simply define this by composing the functions. So evaluating first I1 on the input and then I2 on the intermediate result. For interpreting if, we use coq if. For interpreting loop, we use a recursive call. But this doesn't work because we are blocked at the fail with case. So in order to support that, the solution is well known. Since coq is a purely functional language, we have no exception, and we need a monad to represent failed states. So this is what we do. M is basically an error monad that has two constructors, return and failed. Failed is used in the fail with case. Return is used when we need to return a result immediately. And instead of composing evaluation of I1 with evaluation of A2, we use the monadic bind. Okay, so this is so using this error monad let us define the fail with case, but we are still stuck because coq rejects this definition as because the recursive call in the definition of eval is not structural. So coq cannot prove termination of this function, and actually this function doesn't terminate, so it's not a big surprise. And for this also, the solution is well known in the coq community. The solution is simply to add an extra argument to the function, which is usually called fuel, and define the recursive function as structurally decreasing on this new argument fuel. And so basically, where we are out of fuel, when fuel is 0, we raise a custom error called out of fuel. And in the successor case, when fuel is the successor of n, we use n in all our recursive calls. So this is accepted by coq. It's a bit annoying in practice to have to provide fuels when running and when doing proof, but it's clearly manageable. Okay. Just a few words on the domain-specific operation that I silenced. So for mutase and timestamps, which are the two arithmetic types, domain-specific types in Michelson, there is really no problem to support them directly. So they are represented using the Z type for integer in Coq, and arithmetics on them is easy to define. However, for the primitive, Michelson primitive for serialization and for cryptography, these two are currently axiomatized. Well, because it wasn't the focus of the project. Okay, so let's go on. And let's talk about smart contract verification, which is the main application of MichoCoq. So to understand what we mean by a correct smart contract, I define this relation. So we say that an instruction I from stack type A to stack type B is correct with respect to its specification, where the specification is a relation between stacks of type A and stacks of type B. So this instruction is correct with respect to the specification if evaluating this instruction on an arbitrary input returns successfully some output if and only if the input and output are related by spec. So that's almost standard, but usually we don't have an equivalence here. We have just a single implication, but that doesn't change much of the game. So what we want to do in this context, because I think it's important in the context of smart contract, is to really characterize all successful runs of the contract. So that's what we call full functional verification. Okay, so to help the user of the MichoCoq framework prove for correctness of his favorite contracts, we define a weakest precondition calculus, which takes the form of a WP recursive function. So, as the name suggests, it takes as parameter a post condition, so predicate over possible results, a predicate over stacks of type B, and produces a predicate over possible inputs, a predicate over stacks of type A. So its definition closely follows the definition of the evaluator. Basically, we are redefining the same function using a different monad. Instead of the error monad, we use a continuation monad. But there are a few differences that have been added on top of this, which justify the duplication of the code. And these are meant to simplify the formula that produced when applying this WP. So in particular, instead of producing formula of the form if B then C else false, it produces B and C, stuff like that. Simple logical simplifications. And the main lemma is the correctness of this WP calculus, which is stated as follows. If some input satisfies the precondition computed on the weakest precondition computed on a post-condition psi for instruction I. So this is equivalent to the existence of an output such that evaluating the instruction on this input produces successfully this output, and the output satisfies the post-condition. Okay, so that's the main theorem of the framework, and this is the lemma that allows to use WC in practice to prove correctness of smart contracts as defined previously. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what we can achieve using this, here are the two main, well, I think the two most important smart contracts that have been verified using Mishokok. So the first one is a multisig example. So I think I don't need to go into details about what multisigs are, since we just have a great talk about ownership sharing. And so the idea is that here we do that at the smart contract level, which is probably much easier. And the possible actions once the threshold is met for this certified multisig are either to transfer or spend the funds of the multisig balance, or to change the list of owners and the threshold. Usually we want to change both at the same time. And the other important smart contract that we have verified is spending limit contract that is used in the Cortez mobile wallet. So the idea is to have two roles, an admin and a user role. So these roles are represented by the public keys of the well, we use cryptographic authentication, so to authenticate against one of these roles. The idea is that the secret key corresponding to the user is going to be stored on the mobile phone inside Cortez. So it can easily be stolen or lost, where the admin role is not stored on the phone. It's stored in a safe, typically, or in a bank, or I don't know, but in a safe place. And so the user will do everyday spending of the funds, whereas the admin will only be used in case of key loss, or if the phone gets robbed or anything. So the user can only spend tokens of the contract up to a stored limit, and there is a time window during which the user is able to spend this. So this is very similar to spending limits for credit cards, for example. And the admin has all rights on the contract, and he can change both the limit and the authentication keys for both roles. Okay, so I'm about to finish this presentation. So to conclude, we have formalized the Michelson smart contract language in the Coq Proof Assistant. And the main application of this work is to formalize, this formulation, sorry, is to prove interesting properties, and in particular correctness, of a few interesting smart contracts. In the future, the second main application of the framework is clearly the development of certified compilers to Michelson. So in the Tezos community, there is quite a variety of high-level languages that compile to Michelson. And one of them is called Albert, and the Albert compiler is developed at Nomadic Labs, and we'd like to certify it using Mishokok. So the compiler already produces Mishokok terms, but we still need to certify the chain. Another important aspect that's not formalized yet is the cost model. So called gas. It's very similar to what's done in the EVM. Every instruction in Michelson has a cost, and there are bounds on the gas that transfer on the Tezos blockchain can consume. And so this is not yet formalized in Mishokok, and it would be very interesting to be able to prove properties about gas consumption. And if we want to formalize properties about what happens in time, or when several smart contracts interact, we also need to extend the range of formalization and formalize a bit what the Tezos blockchain actually does outside of running a smart contract. And finally, I said that serialization and cryptography primitives were axiomatized, so I think it would be good to branch, to replace these axioms by formalized cryptography and serialization primitives, probably using some of the very good libraries that are around. Okay, so to conclude, well, I reached the end of the presentation, and here are a few links if you want to learn more about Tezos, the Michelson language, or the Michio framework. Thank you very much. I hope you have plenty of questions.